Hey, welcome to the Bible for Not Dummies, because if you're interested in what the Bible's all about, then you, my friend, are not a dummy. You may just be curious about the Bible, but if you're curious, it might be God tugging at your heart, because the Bible tells us that God wants everyone to know truth and to know Him. So I'm glad you've joined me for this series of videos where we're answering the question, so what's the Bible all about anyway? Previously on the Bible for Not Dummies.
So why should I believe in the biblical creation account? What about the theory of evolution?
The biggest objection to the Genesis creation account is the theory of evolution. Now, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the theory of evolution is not an accurate explanation for creation. There are valid concerns with the theory of evolution from within many scientific disciplines such as biology, geology, anthropology, mathematics, physics, and more. There's an excellent video that's free to watch on YouTube called Is Genesis History, which covers a bunch of areas of science and provides an awesome analysis of the competing creation views. I've provided a link in the description of this video below, and I encourage you to check it out, but after this video, of course. So of all the issues that come up when we look at the theory of evolution, the one that really sticks out to me is the statistical probability. I'm typically not too interested in the science of statistics, but for me, I find that the statistics of evolutionary theory to be one of the primary sticky points. So that's the area I'm going to focus on in this episode. The theory of evolution was first suggested in a book by an English naturalist, geologist, and biologist named Charles Darwin in 1859. In his book entitled On the Origin of Species, he suggested that organisms change over time as a result of changes to physical and behavioral traits that are passed down from generation to generation. These changes are characterized by the term natural selection, meaning that certain physical and behavioral traits that help an organism thrive in a particular environment will be passed on to subsequent generations, while traits that don't help an organism thrive in a particular environment don't get passed on. So basically, the theory of evolution makes the claim that given enough time, for example, billions and billions of years, organisms become more and more complex. So all life started with single-celled organisms a little over 3.5 billion years ago, and these single-celled organisms have evolved into the organisms of today, where it's estimated that the human body is made up of approximately 100 trillion cells. Scientists have calculated that the probability of an average size protein occurring through evolution or natural processes would be one chance out of approximately 4.9 times 10 to the 191st power. A single cell is made of 42 million proteins. The probability of getting an entire cell by naturalistic processes is one chance out of 10 times 10 to the 40,000th power. That's a 1 with 40,001 zeros after it. That would take 12 pages to write out. And don't take my words for this. I've provided links in the description below where you can find this information for yourself. If you look up what would be considered statistical impossibility, you will find that if something might only occur one time out of 10 to the 50th attempts, or one chance out of a sextillion, it's considered so improbable that it can be considered statistically impossible. So on the basis of statistics, it would be very improbable, even impossible, for a protein to naturally come into existence, let alone a cell with 42 million proteins, or a human with 100 trillion cells. In any case, I thought it would be interesting to do a little experiment of our own. And I've invited some friends to help out. I want to welcome a Lego maniac and a good friend, Jack, to the show. Hello, Jack.
Hi, Mr. Mark. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, thanks for being on the show. And let's also welcome Cartoon Albert Einstein.
Well, hello there.
Hello, Cartoon Albert Einstein.
Mark, can you tell me what I'm thinking?
Well, that's not hard, Cartoon Albert Einstein. You're a cartoon.
Yeah, I forgot.
So let's do a little experiment with statistics and probability for ourselves and see what happens. Hey, Jack, you said you like Legos, right?
Golly gee, Legos are swell.
So can you tell me a little bit about this Lego set that I have right here?
That's a Lego race buggy. It's set 1096, first released in 1999, has 22 parts total. It's part of an Extreme Team collection. Wow, I haven't seen one of those since before I was born.
Wow, you really know your stuff. Thanks for the info, Jack. And hey, cartoon Albert Einstein, can you give us a rough estimate of how many combinations these 22 parts can be assembled into?
Let's see. 22 parts squared, accounting for the number of ways the parts can fit. Carry the 3, move the decimal. I estimate there are just over 9 octotrigintillion combinations.
Okay, so out of those 9 octotrigintillion combinations, only one will exactly make the buggy as shown in the picture. So what do you think about that, Jack?
Golly, that's nuts!
So what do you guys think if I took this Christmas tin here and put the 22 pieces in it and shook it up? What are the chances that it'll assemble itself? What do you think, Jack?
Jeepers, I think it's impossible.
What do you think about that, cartoon Albert Einstein?
Statistically impossible.
Well, let's give it a try. They say that a single cell made up of 42 million proteins can somehow come together over billions of years. So let's see what happens with this buggy that only has 22 parts. It should certainly take a lot less time, right?
Well, okay, but my mom wants me home at 5 o'clock for dinner.
All right, there's all the parts. And whoops, instruction manual. We don't need that because we've got billions and billions of years. So let's close the lid and let's start shaking.
$3.5 billion years later.
Seems to have gotten really quiet. Are you still with me, Jack?
Still here, Mr. Mark.
You still there, cartoon Albert Einstein? Whoops. I think we fast forwarded too far. Well, let's see what happened to the race buggy. Wow. It looks like the parts rubbed together so much they ground themselves into dust. Oh well, I guess that experiment didn't work, but I think you guys get the point. Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Mr. Mark.
I think you better get home for dinner now. So let's go back in time now. I'll be back in just a second. Voila! So there you have it, a brief look at one of the primary objections to the biblical creation account, an objection that seems statistically impossible. Now, think about this. What's the probability that God exists? Well, most reasonable people would probably say it's a 50-50 chance. If you don't have a personal relationship with God, how can you know either way? So we all put our faith in something, and from what I see, it would take a lot more faith to believe in evolutionary theory than to believe in God. And therefore, it would take a lot more faith to believe in evolutionary theory than the biblical creation account. From a statistical perspective, the existence of an intelligent designer who's responsible for the biblical creation account is much more probable. Well, I hope that gave you something to think about, and please remember to check out the video I linked below called Is Genesis History, as well as the other informational links I've provided. So until next time, thank you for joining me on The Bible for Not Dummies.